There's a specific kind of silence that lives in a house just before it's broken, before a life unravels like a pulled thread from the edge of a sweater. It was a Tuesday, a day with no agenda. The kind of day you'd forget if not for what it became. Laura had asked me to stay home for the repair guy. Kitchen drawers weren't sliding right, she said. Some hinges had rusted out. Normally she'd handle stuff like that, but she had a lunch thing with her friend Margie. At least, that's what she claimed. The guy showed up around 10. Late 30s maybe, wiry with tan arms and a carpenter's pencil tucked behind his ear. His truck was beat up but loaded with the kind of tools that said he knew what he was doing. I let him in, offered him water. He declined. Quiet guy. Didn't give his name, just went straight to work like he'd been there before. Looking back, maybe he had. I worked in the den, door open, just enough to catch the scrape of metal tools, the low hum of the drill, and occasionally Laura's laugh. That didn't make sense. She was supposed to be out. I got up to look, half expecting to find her coat still on the hook, her purse gone. But no, her keys were there, her shoes by the mat. I moved toward the kitchen, quiet as guilt. That's when I heard it again. Her laugh, then his. It stopped me. There's something about hearing that kind of laugh, the one that used to be yours, shared with someone else. It's not the sound itself. It's the intimacy behind it. The kind of softness that doesn't belong in repair jobs or between strangers. I turned the corner. They weren't touching. Not then. She was sitting on a counter, legs swinging slightly. He stood close, holding a cabinet door in one hand, a screwdriver in the other, like the kitchen was just a stage for something else entirely. They didn't see me. She leaned forward and said something I couldn't hear. He smiled. Then he touched her knee. Just a moment, just a gesture, but one you don't mistake. I backed away before they noticed. I don't know how long I stood there in the hallway. My heart was thudding, but not like fear. More like a countdown. The weight of realization building, clicking toward zero. I went upstairs, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at the wall. This wasn't a fling. Not some one-night betrayal. It was casual, familiar. The way she looked at him, like he'd been in our house before. Maybe not just this one. Maybe others, in her imagination, in whatever twisted version of life she was rebuilding behind my back. I didn't confront her. Not then. I waited until he left, watched from the upstairs window as he walked to his truck like nothing had happened. She didn't walk him out. She just closed the door gently and leaned against it with a smile on her face. That smile. I walked downstairs. She was in the kitchen, wiping the counter like she hadn't just torn our marriage open with a man holding a damn socket wrench. She looked up and blinked. "Hey," she said, too casual. "I didn't think you'd be out of your meeting yet." "Meeting got canceled," I said. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't accuse. Just looked at her. She looked back for a second too long, then turned to rinse the rag. "He fixed the drawers," she said. "Glad someone's getting something fixed around here." She froze. Her back stiffened. That was the first crack. Later that night, I checked the ring cam. Nothing. Turned out the system had been accidentally disabled the night before. I checked the drawer where we keep the backup hard drive. Gone. She was thorough, but not thorough enough. Because I had a second ring cam. A hidden one she didn't know about. And it caught everything. The angle wasn't great. Just a sliver of the kitchen. But it caught her leaning in, his hand on her thigh, her kissing him like it was the most natural thing in the world. That was the moment the story changed. This wasn't just infidelity. It was war. And I wasn't about to be the guy left holding the ashes. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed beside her, eyes open, listening to the rhythm of her breathing. She slept easily. That's what struck me most. No guilt in her chest. No restlessness in her limbs. She slept like a woman who believed the lie held. That the world was still intact, and she was still the wife of a man too oblivious to notice the furniture repairman had left more than tightened hinges behind. At 2:13 a.m., I got up, padded down to the den barefoot, the air thick with that faint scent of wood dust and lemon cleaner. I power on my old laptop, the one she always told me to toss because it was clunky and outdated. That's exactly why I kept it. No sync cloud, no shared storage. Just a fossil with secrets of its own. I pulled the footage from the hidden ring cam. The angle caught only half the kitchen. But that was enough. It started with her leading him in through the side door, the one I thought was jammed. She knew to avoid the front. Knew it wasn't about the job because she didn't show him the drawers first. She poured 2 glasses of wine before he even dropped his tool bag. He sat on the edge of the counter. She stood between his legs, laughed, kissed him, not like a mistake, like a ritual, a routine, like this was something they did often, like this was hers now, and I was just borrowing the space they already claimed. When the video ended, I didn't feel rage. I felt math. Cold, mechanical math. Time. Dates. Patterns. I pulled my planner from the drawer, flipped back over the last 4 months. All the errands. All the "I'll be back before dinner" texts. All the late night runs to the store where she came back without a bag in hand. It wasn't random. Every third Tuesday. Every second Friday. Once, even on a Sunday morning when I took Jason to soccer. The same pattern. The same holes in the timeline. She'd built a new life between the lines of our calendar. And the repairman? He wasn't just a fling. He was infrastructure, a permanent fixture, a man who brought his own tools and knew how to hide screws under floor mats. The next morning, I pretended nothing was wrong. She made coffee. I made toast. Jason hummed while building something out of Legos on the table. A domestic scene so pristine it felt manufactured. She kissed me on the cheek. Going out later, she said casual, "You don't need anything, right?" "No," I said. "We're good." But I followed her, waited 30 minutes after she left, then got in my car and tailed hers. She drove like someone with nothing to hide. Didn't check her mirrors. Didn't take detours. She wasn't meeting the repairman this time. No, she was going somewhere more permanent. The address was familiar. A house on the edge of town, right near the industrial park. I'd driven by it 100 times. Never thought much of it. But there was his truck. Same one from our driveway. Same dent in the bumper. Parked like he belonged there. She got out, didn't even knock. Walked straight inside. I waited. An hour passed. Then 2. When she emerged, her hair was pulled up differently. Her jacket was gone. She kissed him at the door, quick but not cautious. Confident, like no one in this world mattered enough to see. When she drove off, I didn't follow her. I followed him. He went to another job. A real one this time. An actual client. I waited until he left, then approached the house. Knocked. An old woman answered. Sweet. Polite. Probably had no clue her cabinets were being installed by a man who used the same hands to undress someone else's wife. I asked for a business card. Told her I was thinking about a kitchen remodel. She gave it to me, smiling. "He's very good," she said. "Cleans up after himself." I smiled back. "Bet he does." That night, I stared at the card for hours. His name was Curtis. Curtis Marks. He ran a one-man business out of his garage. Nothing official. No LLC. No reviews online. Just word of mouth. He operated under the radar, under the table. Perfect. By Thursday, I made up my mind. If Curtis liked to operate in the shadows, I'd pull him out into the light. Not with rage. Not with fists. With precision. It started with a burner phone and a simple text. "Curtis Marks, right? I saw what you left behind in my kitchen." No reply, but the read receipt lit up. A minute later, "Who is this?" I waited, then sent a photo. Not of him, not of her, just the drawers. The ones he came to fix. And a caption underneath. "They still don't open." Curtis didn't reply to the text. Not that night. Not the next morning either. But I knew he read it again. Twice. Read receipts are a beautiful thing when you want someone to stew. I imagined him sitting in whatever hole he called home. Phone clutched in his calloused hands. Heart thumping because the man whose wife he touched now knew his name, his face, and the exact measurements of the kitchen where it all went down. The silence was an answer. He was rattled. Laura acted normal. She always did. She kissed me before heading to her Pilates class, or so she said, and I watched her drive off with the confidence of someone still in control. It's fascinating how infidelity doesn't make them nervous. It makes them bold. But boldness only works when you're the only one playing. The moment your opponent wakes up, the game changes. Jason was in the living room again, his tablet glowing with whatever game he was addicted to this week. He glanced at me when I walked past, like he knew I was planning something, like he was waiting for it. I printed the picture, not the full kiss, just the part where Curtis's hand was on her leg, his face close enough to smell her skin. I didn't put a note with it. Didn't have to. I slid it into a manila envelope and dropped it in the mailbox of his workshop around midnight. I didn't wear gloves. I wanted him to know it was me. I wanted my fingerprints to press into his brain like a brand. The next morning, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. No text. Just a photo. A close-up of a drawer. The same one in our kitchen, now wide open. Beneath it, a single word typed in all caps. Fixed. That was Curtis's way of trying to be clever. A jab. A wink. Maybe even a warning. But I wasn't laughing. I looked at the photo until I could see the smudge of his fingerprint on the cabinet's surface. I thought about burning the whole kitchen down just to make sure his touch was gone. But I didn't. I had a better idea. That night, I told Laura I was heading to a friend's for a few drinks. She nodded, barely listening, scrolling on her phone. Probably texting him. I watched her from the doorway, the light from the screen bouncing off her cheekbones. There was a time I would have kissed her there. Now I just stared. I didn't go to a friend's. I went to the workshop. Curtis kept it behind a rented garage in a cul-de-sac on the south side of town. One of those industrial sheds with a half-broken motion light and a paper sign taped to the door that said by appointment only. The lock was cheap. I didn't break in. I waited. Just sat in my car with the engine off and my lights down until he showed up around 10 p.m. carrying a six-pack and a toolbox like it was just another night on the job. He saw me when I stepped out. He didn't run. "Alex," he said, like we were old friends meeting by accident. His voice was calm, but his hand went immediately to the toolbox, like maybe he had something inside that could even the odds. "You've been in my kitchen," I said. He nodded. "Not like you think." "You sure?" He didn't answer. I stepped closer, close enough to see the sweat start on his forehead, despite the cold. "You ever wonder what kind of man lets another guy screw his wife under his roof?" I asked. "I didn't know. You knew. You just didn't care." He looked away. "Let me tell you what kind of man I am," I said. "I'm not the kind who screams. I'm not the kind who fights in parking lots. I don't do theatrics. But I also don't forget." Curtis stayed silent. "You took something from me. Not just her. Something worse. You made me feel like a fool in my own home. I didn't mean, you never do. But you're going to understand what it feels like now." Piece by piece. I handed him a folded sheet of paper. On it a list, a simple inventory, his clients, his suppliers, a copy of an overdue tax document he hadn't filed, the name of a woman he used to date, the one with the restraining order. "I know your whole damn blueprint, Curtis. Your business isn't real. Your license expired. Your last 3 jobs didn't pull permits. And your workshop here? It's not zoned for commerce." His face lost color. "Do you want me to keep going?" "No," he whispered. "Then you disappear. You never call her. Never text. Never look in her direction again. You get in your truck, and you drive far enough that I never hear your name." He nodded slowly. "And if you think I'm bluffing, check your email." I walked away without waiting for a reply. Didn't look back. I didn't have to, because a minute later, I heard his truck engine roar to life, and then silence. Not the silence of something ending. The silence of something just beginning. Back home, Laura was in bed. She turned when I came in. "Hey, you smell like smoke." "Bonfire," I lied. "Lots of ash." She smiled like everything was fine. But everything had changed. The next morning was quiet. Too quiet. That dangerous kind of calm you only notice when you know something's been removed. Not solved, just removed. Curtis was gone. I checked. His number was disconnected. His workshop was shuttered. His last client left a comment on a neighborhood app about a no-show and poor communication. Like he vanished mid-job, mid-life. Just gone. I didn't feel satisfied. Not really. What I felt was momentum. Laura didn't mention him. She had nothing to say about anything, really. She was bright that day. Cheerful. Asked if I wanted pancakes. I said sure. She made them with blueberries, the way she used to. Maybe that was guilt. Maybe she was overcorrecting. Maybe she just liked to see if I'd choke on the syrup. I watched her pour batter into the pan like none of this ever happened. Like our house wasn't soaked in gasoline and all it needed was a match. She leaned against the counter, scrolling her phone again, smiling. Not at me. "You hear from Margie?" I asked, eyes on her. She paused, just for half a second, like someone skipping a beat in a song. "Yeah, she sent a meme earlier," she said. "Why?" "Just wondering. Haven't seen her in a while." She shrugged. "She's been busy." I nodded, sipped my coffee, and tucked that reaction away like a knife I planned to use later. That afternoon, I went through her phone records. Not her messages. I knew she deleted those. But her call logs? Those paint better stories. There were numbers she called often. One in particular, listed under a fake name, Sloan. Nobody calls someone named Sloan 4 times a day and never mentions them. I traced the number. Not hard. It was registered under a burner plan, but the device pinged in 2 places regularly, one near our house and one near a condo in Easton Heights. The condo had a tenant. Female. Single. Mid-40s. Works in real estate. I only needed 5 minutes on her social media to know what I was looking at. This wasn't just about Curtis. Laura had a pattern. Curtis was the distraction. The pawn. Maybe even the fall guy. She had someone else. Someone stable. Someone long-term. Sloan wasn't just a phone contact. Sloan was a plan. Plan B. Maybe even Plan A. I didn't say anything that night. I went to bed next to her like always. Watch her sleep like always. But I didn't sleep. I planned. I laid there in the dark, running timelines in my head. Dates. Patterns. Conversations we'd had that didn't quite add up. This woman didn't just cheat. She layered it. Built it like a structure. She didn't fall into something. She constructed it. And then I found it. The key. Our joint savings account had a slow, almost unnoticeable leak. Small transfers. Always under 1,000. Just far enough under to avoid raising red flags. They were going to a PayPal account under a fake business name. Hollow Pine Services. No website. No clients. No services. Just a shell. The registered email matched Sloan's. This wasn't about love. It was laundering. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed more. I needed her to be sure she was safe. I needed her to keep building her house of cards while I watched from across the room. The next morning, I left early. Told her I had to meet a client. I didn't. I went to the condo. I watched from my car as Sloan, real name Melissa Rhodes, walked out in yoga pants and a puffy jacket. She was on the phone, laughing. I rolled the window down slightly, listened to the tone. Playful, confident. Not a woman who believed she was part of something scandalous. No, she thought she was winning. When she drove off, I went in. The lock wasn't hard to pick. The place was spotless. Cold. Empty in the way expensive places are when no one's lived there long enough to leave real damage. But the kitchen table had a folder on it. Inside, notes. Handwritten ones. Laura's handwriting. I knew it like I knew my own. There were figures. Bank details. A plan for something called Phase 3. I took pictures of every page. I didn't touch anything else. I closed the door behind me and left no trace. That night, I made dinner. Laura came home a little late. Said Pilates ran over. Said Margie had a new instructor. Said things like they mattered. I nodded, passed her the salad. When she took her first bite, I said, "You think about moving lately?" She looked up, startled. "What?" "I don't know. Just wondering if you ever think about leaving. Starting over." She stared for a moment too long. "Why would you ask that?" I smiled. "Just curious. Everyone's got a plan, right?" She laughed nervously. "Well, if I did, I'd take you with me." That was the moment I knew she was still lying. Not because of the words, but because of the look in her eyes. That flicker of fear. She knew I knew something. She didn't know what. And now the floorboards were starting to warm. Because the fire was coming. 3 days later, I found the missing thread. A second storage unit, this one rented under the name Eleanor M. Black. I knew the name wasn't real. Eleanor was her grandmother's middle name. The one she used to say sounded like royalty. And Black? That was Curtis's last name. Not marked like he told me, Black. He'd changed it on his business card, but not on his utility bills. I traced it through a credit inquiry tied to the Hollow Pine account. They always leave something. One stray email, one unchecked box, one old ID number. It's never clean. Laura thought she was tidy. She was surgical, sure, but every surgeon leaves a scar. I stood outside the unit, tucked at the edge of a row of identical metal doors, trying to decide what kind of person rents a 10 by 10 steel box under a dead woman's name. Someone with things to hide. That's who. The key code was in her notes. She must have written it down for Sloan. 1123 hashtag, Noah's birthday. I should have known. Even her lies were built on things she took from me. The door creaked upward, dust settling in my throat as I stepped inside. It wasn't what I expected. No boxes, no furniture, just a table, a chair, a locked briefcase, and a corkboard on the far wall. On the corkboard, maps, receipts, outlines. A full plan. Red Yarn wasn't involved, but it might as well have been. She charted out our finances, Curtis's exit, the slow siphoning of our savings. There were photos, too, surveillance style. Me, Jason, even the house from across the street. At first I thought maybe Curtis had taken them. But no, the timestamp on one of them, 3:21 p.m. on a Wednesday, was a time I remembered clearly. I was in the backyard grilling. Jason was reading on the porch. Laura was inside with her phone. She'd taken the picture. From the upstairs window, there was a folder labeled After. I flipped it open and felt something in me settle. Not anger, not heartbreak, just a final understanding. And there were printed mock-ups of listings for our house. Descriptions of the home I built, rewritten like it had never belonged to me. One note said, "Stage for emotional buyer, family angle." Another, "Target close date, March 22nd. Vacate by March 15th. There it was, the day she planned to walk out for good. And she wouldn't have even told me. She'd have taken Jason, the money, everything. Probably would have left a note. Maybe a text if she was feeling brave. I didn't take anything from a unit. I didn't need to. I had my photos, my screenshots. Evidence layered, thick and ugly. But I did leave one thing. An envelope. Inside it, a single photo of Curtis's abandoned truck. I wrote nothing on it. Let her guess what it meant. Let the panic set in. That night, she was distant. Not the usual distracted kind. The paranoid kind. She kept checking her phone, glancing at me from behind her wine glass. She asked how my day was. Uneventful, I said. She smiled like it didn't quite reach her eyes. Good. You deserve boring. Jason stayed upstairs most of the night, headphones on, lost in some online world. I watched Laura pretend to be normal. Washing dishes. Folding laundry. She even asked if I wanted to plan a trip this summer. Just the two of us. The audacity of it. I told her sure. Sounded nice. Told her I'd look at flights. The next day, I met with a lawyer. I didn't ask for divorce papers. Not yet. That was too clean. Too final. I wanted something else. A way to lock our accounts, preserve assets, limit transactions. She didn't know I could do that without her signature. But once you start building an exit plan of your own, the law lets you protect yourself. Turns out mutual trust isn't required, just provable risk. She called Curtis that night. I watched her from the hallway, ear pressed to the bathroom door. She spoke in whispers. It's not safe anymore. I don't know how he knows. No, he hasn't said anything, but I can feel it. You need to go. She was unraveling. I could hear it in her voice. I could see it in her eyes when she came to bed and didn't kiss me goodnight. Jason knocked on my office door around midnight. Said he had a question about school, but I could tell it was an excuse. He sat down across from me, fidgeting. Is Mom okay? He asked. What do you mean? She's been weird. Like scared. I watched him carefully. He was sharper than I gave him credit for. She's fine, I said. She's just tired. He looked at me like he wanted to ask more, but didn't. I almost told him the truth. Almost. But he was still too young to carry what I was carrying. Someday, he'd know everything. But not yet. Laura slept with her phone under her pillow that night. She locked the bedroom door from her side. I let her. It was better this way. Let her think she had the upper hand. Let her keep building her version of the future. Because I was already inside the foundation. And the moment she tried to run, it would all collapse. She woke up to an empty closet. Her side of it anyway. The clothes, the shoes, the little labeled bins she obsessively kept her scarves in gone. The drawers were bare. No note. No explanation. I didn't even take anything. I just moved it all into the attic and locked the hatch. I wanted her to feel the absence before she found the answer. That morning, her voice was too calm when she asked, "Did you move something in the closet?" I didn't look up from my coffee. No. You sure you didn't? She stood there barefoot, still in her robe, processing it in real time. Her mouth was forming another question when her phone buzzed on the counter. She reached for it. Froze. She read the message, turned her body so I couldn't see, and excused herself to the bathroom. The message was from the lawyer. Not hers. Mine. She didn't know I copied her phone's cloud. I'd mirrored her backup 2 nights ago while she was asleep. Every text, every contact, every unsent draft. Mine now. The message was a simple notice. A temporary freeze had been placed on all joint accounts pending investigation into suspicious activity. She wouldn't be able to touch a dime. Hollow Pine's PayPal had also been reported. That trail she was so proud of, the one she thought she'd scrub clean, now flagged by fraud departments in 3 states. I made pancakes. Blueberry again. She didn't eat them. She sat at the table scrolling, her fingers twitching like she could dig her way out if she typed fast enough. "Everything okay?" I asked. She didn't answer at first. Then, "Did you do something to our accounts?" I kept my eyes on the skillet. "Not unless moving savings into a protected trust counts." She stared. "It's for Jason," I said. I didn't want anyone spending what didn't belong to them. "You can't just—" She stopped, realizing how it would sound. "We're supposed to make those decisions together. Like the withdrawals you made in December, or the wire transfer to Hollow Pine Services." She blinked. Her mouth opened, then closed. Her eyes shifted to Jason's backpack by the stairs, like she was already calculating how fast she could run with him if it came to that. "I don't know what you think you've found." "Oh, I don't think," I said. "I know." That was the last word I spoke to her that day. She left around noon. Said she needed to clear her head. I let her. I watched her car from the upstairs window, watched her pull out of the driveway and drive in the wrong direction for Margie's. I gave her a 10-minute head start, then followed. She drove straight to the condo in Easton Heights, Sloane's place. I didn't get out. I didn't need to. She wasn't there to confront. She was there to regroup. I imagined her inside, pacing, texting Curtis, or what was left of him, realizing too late that all her options had already been stripped. I sent her the photo while she was still inside, the one of the briefcase in the storage unit. Captioned it, "I took the liberty of organizing your plan B." "You're welcome." No reply. Just 3 dots blinking for a full minute. Then nothing. That night, she returned home to find the locks changed. Not all of them. Just the side door. The one she used when she didn't want me to hear her come in. The same one Curtis once walked through, carrying a toolbox and a lie. I sat in the living room when she came through the front, her keys jingling with irritation. "You changed the locks?" "Just the ones that mattered." "Alex, this is getting insane." "Whatever you think I did." "I don't think," I repeated. "I know." She crossed her arms. "I want to talk to Jason." "You will." "In mediation." She faltered. "You're not serious." "I've never been more serious." The mask cracked then. Not all the way. Just enough to see the real her underneath. The cold calculation. The part of her that was already searching for an angle, an exit, a way to spin the story, so she'd be the one limping away with sympathy and a payout. "You can't just cut me out," she hissed. "Cut you out? You did it the day you brought him into our house." She stepped forward like she still had power, like proximity was leverage. But I didn't move. I just looked at her the way you look at a puzzle you've already solved. "Curtis is gone," I said. "Melissa's under investigation, and Hollow Pine's been flagged as a fraudulent entity tied to laundering. That was your escape plan, wasn't it?" Her breath caught. "I wonder what the IRS will think when they find out you used our son's social security number to apply for a tax credit under that business." She went pale. "You didn't know I found that part, did you?" She shook her head, like it might make time reverse. But time wasn't going anywhere. It was frozen, just like the accounts, just like her. "You think this makes you the winner?" she said finally. "No," I said. "This makes me free." She left. Not with a bang. Not with tears. She didn't scream or beg or throw plates like I half expected. She just walked out the front door with her keys in her hand and a look on her face like the world had finally turned on her. And it had. She didn't stay gone. Not really. People like her never leave quietly. They circle. They probe for weaknesses. They test the gates. 4 days passed before she made her next move. A letter slipped under the front door. Not mailed. Not sent digitally. Handwritten. That was the first sign she was desperate. The woman who once scoffed at anything analog, now writing in pen like a teenager breaking curfew. I read it once, standing in the hallway with the envelope still warm from her hands. She tried to sound reasonable. Said I was overreacting. Said she understood I was hurt. Hurt. That word again. Like she'd bumped me in a hallway, not detonated the foundation of our life and tried to disappear into the smoke. The letter was a preamble. What came next was the real strike. She filed an emergency motion with the court, claimed emotional distress, claimed coercion, claimed, this was the best part, that I had unlawfully isolated her from her son. She was playing the long game now, painting herself as the victim, a woman scorned, a mother kept from her child, the kind of narrative that wins sympathy in courtrooms and headlines. But I was ready. My lawyer, Burke, had seen it all. Former prosecutor, zero tolerance for theatrics. When he read her motion, he didn't even blink. She's laying the groundwork, he said. Wants to make you look like the abuser. See it 100 times. So what do? We make her prove it. We filed our own motion the next morning. Included documentation, the financial trails, the shell company, the IP address logs from her fake accounts, messages from Curtis who, by now, had flipped like a cheap folding chair. He agreed to a statement in exchange for immunity. His words were sharp, descriptive, full of times, dates, locations. He even provided an audio recording she didn't know he had. She called it fun insurance during one of their meetups. I called it leverage. Jason didn't know the details. I kept him buffered from the worst of it, but he could sense the shift. He was quieter, asked fewer questions, started locking his door at night. The innocence had started to drain from him. That part broke me in ways she never could. 3 days before the court hearing, she showed up again. Mid-afternoon, I was on the porch drinking coffee when her car pulled in. She stepped out wearing a blazer like she thought this was a negotiation. I'm not here to fight, she said. Good, I said. Because you've already lost. She flinched. Can we talk? Please. I let her talk. I didn't move. Didn't offer her a seat. She stood on the edge of the porch like she was waiting for me to throw her a rope. I didn't. She tried to soften. Said she made mistakes. Said she got caught up. Said Curtis manipulated her. That she was never going to leave for real. That was all just a reaction to how absent I'd become. As if my long hours were the reason her panties ended up on our kitchen counter. She said the words, but didn't believe them. Her eyes kept darting to my face, scanning for impact like a boxer throwing jabs just to see where the opening was. What do you want? I asked. She paused and said it. I want to come home. Now I want to fix this. Now I want to make it right. I want to come home. Like this was about geography, not damage. I let the silence answer her. She shifted gears. You can't do this to Jason, she said. He needs his mother. I stood, walked down the steps. Got close enough, she had to tilt her head to meet my eyes. You remember that night? When you said you were going out for groceries and didn't come back for 6 hours? She nodded slowly. I track your phone. You were at the Bellevue Inn. Room 215. Curtis's truck was parked out front. Her eyes went glassy. That was Jason's birthday. Silence. You want to talk about what he needs? I said. Start there. She didn't speak again. Just turned, got in the car, and drove off without closing the door all the way. It bounced once, then latched. That tiny delay felt poetic. Burke called me the night before the hearing. She's panicking, he said. Her lawyer asked to settle privately. And I told him no. I wanted on record. Wanted the judge to see the paper trail, to hear the recordings, to look into her eyes and understand that the woman who stood in that courtroom wasn't a grieving mother or a wronged wife. She was an arsonist complaining about the heat. The hearing lasted 2 hours. She cried, spoke about confusion, said she needed time to find herself, said I had created an environment of silence. Her lawyer referenced her emotional instability as a mitigating factor, not an indictment. It was a decent performance, but the documents cut through all of it. So did Curtis's affidavit. So did the footage. The judge took 10 minutes to deliberate, came back with a ruling that froze the remaining assets, ordered a psychological evaluation, and awarded me temporary sole custody of Jason. She didn't look at me when it ended. She looked at Jason, and for the first time since this began, her face broke. Not the mask, not the performance. Her face. Because she knew the one person who saw her the clearest now wanted nothing to do with her. You expect the ending to feel clean, like the final click of a door locking, the sound that says it's over. You're safe now, move on. But endings don't work that way, especially not when they're born in betrayal. What you get isn't clarity. What you get is quiet. Not peace, just the kind of silence that waits. Watches, the kind that sits with you long after she's gone. She moved out that week, not into Sloane's place. Melissa was already facing legal heat of her own, and Curtis? He was a ghost by now, disappeared from the grid. Word was he took a job 2 states over under a different name. I didn't chase him. I didn't need to. He was already living in the consequence I built. Laura's exit wasn't dramatic. No suitcases rolling down the driveway. No shouting in the rain. She packed while I was at work, left behind what didn't matter. Books she never read, old perfumes, a framed photo of the 3 of us taken on Jason's 5th birthday. She left it in the kitchen drawer, like it was just another expired warranty. Jason never asked where she went. He just started sleeping with the door closed and stopped using the mom part of his vocabulary. The grief didn't come in sobs. It came in pauses. The extra second he took before answering a question. The way he lingered in doorways, like he was checking to see if the world still made sense. I let him be. I didn't try to fix him. That was something Laura never understood. You can't fix a fracture by pushing harder. You have to wait. Let heal, uneven if it needs to. One night, maybe a month after she left, he came into my room with the photo she'd abandoned. "Do we keep this?" he asked. I looked at the picture, her smile wide, my arm around her shoulder, Jason in the middle, holding a balloon that said 5 and fearless. "We keep it," I said, "but maybe not on the wall." He nodded, handed it to me, and left without another word. I didn't throw it out. I put it in a box in the garage. A memory, not a monument. The legal stuff dragged on. They always say court is where justice happens, but really it's where truth gets filtered through paperwork and posture. In the end, she settled. She gave up her claim to the house, walked away from her share of the savings. The price of freedom, she called it. I called it exposure. Her lawyer had started to see the cracks too. He'd read the affidavit, heard the audio, seen the statements. He knew dragging this into a full trial wouldn't just cost her money. It would destroy the version of herself she was still trying to sell to anyone who would listen. There was one condition in the settlement. She wanted a goodbye dinner with Jason. Supervised. Neutral location. 1 hour. She said it was for closure. I said I'd ask him. He said yes, but only if it was somewhere boring. So we picked a chain restaurant. Fluorescent lighting. Plastic booths. Nothing memorable. She showed up looking like someone playing a role. Soft sweater, natural makeup, hair tied back like she'd aged 10 years into some domesticated echo of herself. Jason sat across from her and barely touched his burger. She talked, said she was sorry, said she was getting help, said she wanted him to understand that adults make mistakes. He nodded, but his eyes never met hers. When she reached across the table, he flinched. That's when I knew. He was done. Not angry, not heartbroken. Done. After she left, I asked if he was okay. Yeah, he said. She looked smaller than I remember. We didn't speak about her much after that. Her name faded from the daily language of our house. She became something abstract, a chapter, a blueprint of what not to become. I fixed the kitchen myself. Took me a few weekends. Replaced the drawers. Sanded the cabinets. Painted everything a lighter shade, just enough to erase the fingerprints no cleaning product ever could. It wasn't about renovation. It was reclamation. Every time a drawer slid smoothly, I felt something real align. One screw at a time, I took the house back. People ask sometimes if I'd ever forgive her. I don't know how to answer that. What I know is this. Forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting. It's not even the same as healing. It's just letting go of the rope before it cuts any deeper. She sends letters now and then. Card for Jason. Photos of some new place she's living in. He doesn't open them. I keep them in a drawer he can access whenever he wants. So far, he hasn't. I started writing again. That was something I let die during the mess. But now, when the house is quiet and the dishes are done, I sit at the old desk in the den and put words to page. Not to relive the pain, but to name it, shape it, own it. Because that's the thing no one tells you about betrayal. It doesn't just take. It gives you something too. A new edge, a sharper eye, a deeper silence, and the knowledge that some things don't need rebuilding. Some things are better left in ruins.